Hello, Year 8. This week we are finishing off the work we've been doing on the identification, the poem that we've been looking at as our stimulus material. Remember, stimulus means the work that stimulates ideas. So in this case, we use the poem to stimulate a series of drama activities. If you have not got access to the script you wrote last week, then please make sure you have a copy of that because you'll need it to refer to. You'll also need some paper or a computer to type your ideas on. During this lesson, you are going to use the ideas that you came up with last week to write a monologue, and that is a short speech based on the experience of a character who witnessed the explosion. So last week, you created a scene demonstrating what happened leading up to the explosion, what caused it from the point of view of characters who were there. This week, you're going to think about what someone who saw the explosion happen might have thought. You're going to write a speech from their point of view. To start off with, knowledge retrieval. I've got some questions for you, 5 questions, which I'd like you to answer in full sentences. Question 1. When you are writing a script, how might you show which character is speaking? When you are writing a script, how might you show which character is speaking? The answer will start. To show which character is speaking in a script, you would. Question 2. What punctuation mark would you use after a character's name? What punctuation mark would you use after a character's name? The answer will start. The punctuation mark you use after a character's name in a script is. Question 3, or C, as I realise that I've altered them. What are stage directions? What are stage directions? Now, if you did the quiz last week, you should find this answer very easy. Stage directions are. Question 4, or D. How do you show which are stage directions? Now, there's a reason for this, because obviously when you're reading a script, you need to be certain which bits of text are the words you're supposed to read out loud, the dialogue, and which bits of text are the stage directions. So there is a way, but there's a couple of ways in which when you're writing a script, you can show the actor or the director what the stage directions are. So to show which words are the stage directions, you would. And the final question, why might you leave a gap after the name of the character who is speaking? Why might you leave a gap after the name of the character who is speaking? Now, I'm not sure that I've actually given you the answer to this one. I may have done, but one would hope that you're able to use a bit of common sense to understand this one. So you might leave a gap after the name of the character who is speaking in order to. What you should do now is you should pause this video, answer the questions in full sentences. When you've answered them, unpause the video and move on to the next slide. So if you unpause the video, the next slide is coming up in 3, 2, 1, now. So here are the answers. When you're writing a script, how might you show which character is speaking? You might write their name using bold or capital letters or possibly both. Just some way of showing that it is the character name. Punctuation mark you use after the character's name is a colon, which is 2 dots, one on top of another. What are stage directions? Stage directions are information about what a character is doing, or how they're feeling, and this helps an actor to understand a little bit about how they meant to perform. How do you show which are the stage directions? Well, you put them in brackets, or you put them in italics. Usually both, but depending where they go. And why might you leave a gap after the name of the character who's speaking? Well, basically, it's to make the lines easy to read, because otherwise, when you're reading a script, it can be quite difficult to process who's speaking when. So, making sure that you've made it as easy as possible for your actors is really important. Check your answers. Pause this video, and any answers that you weren't quite right on, make sure you green pen them. Hopefully now you're ready to move on. Next slide is coming up in 3, 2, 1, now. This is today's task, and this is the planning part. You are going to think about the explosion from the point of view of a witness. Now, a witness is the name we give to somebody who saw something happen. They maybe didn't experience it themselves, but they watched it, they witnessed it. So the first thing you're going to do is decide who your witness is. I've got a series of questions for you, and again, I'd like you to answer these questions. Now, what you can do here is, because this is just planning, it's okay for you to bullet point these answers or mind map them. You don't need to write them in full sentences, you just need the information. First question, who was a witness? For example, could they be another friend of Stephen's? Could they be a member of the public who happened to be passing by? Maybe it's a paramedic or a firefighter who was on the scene. What's their name? Try and give them a serious name, a sensible name. How old are they? And their age is going to depend upon who they are. So if they're another friend of Stephen's, they're likely to be teenage. If they're a member of the public, they might be a bit older. Paramedic, firefighter might be in their 20s, 30s, 40s. Where were they at the time of the explosion? They need to be near enough to have witnessed it, or if you're a paramedic, firefighter, police officer, to witness the aftermath, but obviously not close enough to be too badly caught up in it. The most important questions, so the first few questions, they're just basic information. These are more important, so you probably need to write a little bit more about these. What did they see and hear? And this is where you need to refer back to your script from last week. You've talked about what happened during the explosion from the point of view of people who were directly involved. What might someone outside have seen? What might they have experienced? What did they think of Stephen and the other boys? And that's quite a hard question, because obviously that answer will depend upon who they are. A friend might have a very different point of view to somebody who didn't know them, and again a different point of view from someone who is a professional dealing with a situation, like a police officer who might be professionally distanced. And the final question, and with this linking into empathy, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, about putting yourself in someone else's shoes, feeling what they feel. How does your witness feel about the situation? Are they sad? Are they scared? Are they angry? Are they worried? Are they concerned? The first few questions are basic information about your character. The next set of questions are information about the emotions and the feelings of your character. You need to spend 10 minutes jotting down this information. Pause this video and make sure that you've got this information noted down. And then when you're ready, move on to the next slide. Hopefully you've got that information written down. You're ready to move on to the next slide, which is coming up in 3, 2, 1, now. This is the main task of today. This will take you about 20 minutes. The information you just noted down, you're going to use to write a monologue describing the explosion from the point of view of the witness. Now, we've mentioned monologues before. Monologue comes from the words mono, meaning one, and log, meaning to speak. And effectively, a monologue is a speech that one person, one character gives. Now, as I think I may have mentioned, The poem itself is a monologue. It's a monologue from the point of view of Stephen's father. This effectively is bringing us full circle. We started with a monologue, and now we're finishing with another monologue. Though I don't expect you to write this monologue as a piece of poetry, unless you really want to. So your monologue is covering the events leading up to the explosion and its outcome from the point of view of your witness. And again, you need to think about these drama skills that we've been looking at all year: tension, empathy, realism, subtext, and so on and so forth. How are you going to keep your monologue interesting and exciting? How are you going to imagine that your audience is watching your character speaking his lines on stage? How are you going to keep them interested? How are you going to use empathy? How are you going to make your audience care not only about your character, but about the events that he or she is describing? And how are you going to use language to make your character sound believable? How are you going to make your character sound realistic? Your monologue needs to be at least 10 lines long. That is 10 sentences, 10 substantial sentences. If you write shorter sentences, obviously you're going to have to write more than 10 lines. You can write more than 10 lines if you want. Using your information about the character that you've created during the planning, you're now going to write your monologue. So I'm going to show you an example of a monologue that I've written based on the ideas that I've given. So this is a character that's called Joe. And just to give you a bit of breakdown, reminding you how to write your script, make sure that you indicate the name of the character in bold or using capital letters. Use the colon to show what the character's name is. Use brackets or italics to show stage directions. Leave a gap between the character's name and the speech. Just to take it back to the planning for a minute. The witness is a character called Joe. Called him Joe Hendis, and he is a school friend of the boys. And the idea is that he witnessed what happened. He wasn't actually involved in the explosion himself. Now, he's about the same age as them, so he's about 15, 16. And he was nearby. I hadn't decided at the time whether or not he was supposed to be involved. That was something which I didn't plan. It was just something that I decided while I was writing the monologue. And obviously, he is describing his shock and his horror at seeing what happened to his friends. And since they were his friends, he's obviously quite empathetic about what happened, but he's also a little bit worried for himself. This is the moral. This is Joe. It starts off quiet. My name's Joe Hendis. I go to the same school as the lads. James, John, Stephen. I wouldn't say I know them well, just to say hi when I see them. I certainly wasn't involved in. I mean, yeah, I was hanging around the factory, but I wasn't involved. So yeah, okay, yeah, I did see them break the door, but I'm not a grass. I wasn't going to dob them in. Did you? I mean, if I'd known what's going to happen, but I didn't. Hopefully, you can see here I've formatted my script. I've used the stage directions to explain to the actor who's playing Joe how to speak and how to look. And I've also used ellipses, which are the three dots. Um, they help to tell you when to pause. And pausing is quite a natural thing that we do when we're speaking, because we don't always know exactly what we're going to say, and particularly here where the character is under stress, that there's quite a few moments where he's trying to pick his words carefully because he doesn't want to incriminate himself. As is clear from the subtext, he had more of an idea what was going on, and he clearly feels a little bit responsible because he if he mentioned to someone that they were breaking in, he could have stopped it. So I'm trying to communicate that as a bit of subtext. Trying to show the tension in the we're not quite sure what he's going to say. Is he going to confess to being part of it? Is he not? And I mean, the subtext there is obviously that we're not quite sure, and that maybe there's more to Joe's story than he's telling us. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so that's about the length that your monologue should be, the minimum length. If you want to, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can have a go at recording your monologue, and you can record it as a video if you like, or you could record it as an audio file. You don't need to. Just it's useful to do that just to hear whether it sounds natural or not. I'm not expecting you to do that. It's just an extension task, just to try it out. And you'll find in the folder for the task another version of that monologue that I just gave you, which may or may not be as good. I'm not sure. But what we want is we want to see your knowledge retrieval task. We want to see your planning for your monologue, and we want to see your completed monologue. If you could send us your work either as a Word file or a PDF or as a photo. I say with the photos, could you try and make sure that they're portraits rather than landscape? Because otherwise, I either have to put my head to one side or copy and paste with a Word document and read them. That would be really helpful if you do that. I mean, the most helpful way, if I'm being honest, is if you could save the photo as a PDF and paste it in like that. As per usual, please send the work either to myself or Miss Bell. Hope you find this interesting. Next week, we are going to move on to a completely different drama. You can look forward to that next week. Thanks very much for listening, and I will speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.